So we've got our next person coming up here to speak, and we're a big fan of his. Had him on Bad Crypto Podcast many times. He is the founder of Tether. Do you know that? USDT.
Tether.
And he is the king of wax. Would you please welcome Mr. William Quigley? Woo!
Shout out.
Thank you.
Shout out.
Break a leg, good sir.
Oh, am I needing a clicker?
You know what? I have a clicker somewhere in one of these pockets.
All right.
Let's see, which one's it in?
I won't touch.
There it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Click away.
All right, everybody. Hopefully you can all hear me well. This is going to be fast. What I want to do today is give you guys a different take on NFTs, because we all know NFTs as this, right? Pieces of art, video clips, music clips, but NFTs are much more than meets the eye. I want you to think about what makes NFTs particularly remarkable. And in my mind, it's this. It's this ability to transfer something of value to someone else instantly at virtually no cost, where the receiver knows with no effort that that thing is authentic. You cannot do that with diamonds, with gold, with currency. I don't think there's anything else in the universe that meets this test, where you can send something digitally with embedded intelligence, because these things, NFTs, they're not just carriers of media files, they're Turing-complete computers. They're fully programmable computers. That's what makes them amazing. Computers that you can send back and forth through your phone. Computers that have underlying code that you can inspect. No malware, no spyware. These are remarkable because of their transparency, and that's one of the features of NFTs on a blockchain. You can inspect it and know what it does. So when we talk about NFTs and we automatically go to images or media files, I want you, especially those of you who are building in this space, to understand there's a lot more that can be done. Think of NFTs as computers. And what can you do with them? Pretty much anything. What industry would they apply to? Any industry that could use software, which is pretty much any industry. Now, the origins of these, in case you've wondered, NFTs didn't just pop up in January 2021. That is when they took off. But my blockchain, Wax, I launched that in 2017. No one really cared about NFTs until 2021. But the origin of them is an industry that a lot of people who are in the crypto space were part of, including me, and that is the massively multiplayer role-playing games. Things like Ultima Online, World of Warcraft, and then for skins, CSGO. So the reason you might want to know about that is because that industry is a $200 billion annual industry, $200 billion every single year, and growing in double digits. That's what the video game industry does. And the principal revenue model is little tradable virtual items. They're not exactly NFTs, they have some restrictions, which I'll mention, but 200 billion. The secondary market is 50 billion. So that's a 250 billion annual market. So when you wonder how big could NFTs be, just in the video game era, it should be at least as big as that. Now, they are different than the video game industry, and for those of you who are gamers like me, you know full well why. One, all video games have overlords, people like the Apple App Store, Google Play, Steam, Meta, formerly Facebook, Tencent, and these overlords have awful set of terms of service, restrictions. They can ban you. They can take your game and remove it from the App Store temporarily. They can demand you make changes. That is a gigantic difference between building in one of these captive portals versus building in a blockchain. And one of the reasons I ultimately crossed over from gaming into NFTs. So NFTs are permissionless platforms. Now, by the way, not all blockchains are permissionless. Some blockchains, you actually have to ask the creators. Personally, I wouldn't build on such a blockchain. If you're going to build on blockchain, build on a permissionless one. And as I mentioned, they are programmable. They are computers. And we're really just beginning to touch on this aspect of NFTs. And it's going to be necessary to do this, the Web3 building blocks. So when we talk about Web3, I'm assuming most of you heard the word and have done the same thing I've done, which is what the hell is it? Because everyone has their own definition. But in order to get any semblance to what most people talk about, you need this. You need a whole suite of decentralized systems. And none of these are truly decentralized today. So when we think about where we need to go to have, let's say, a metaverse and all those Ready Player One experiences, things like Web3, they're a long ways away. It's gonna be incremental. And one of the reasons they're a long ways away is because we need Web 4. So what is Web 4? That's all the hardware that's gonna power the software of Web 3. And this hardware is not available today. And where there are semblances of it, they're captive within giant companies like Google or Microsoft or Facebook. So this is going to take a while, mainly because venture capitalists, something I used to be, we stopped really investing in hardware about 15 years ago, mainly because it was hard, and the rewards of investing in things other than hardware paid off a lot better. But we have to get back to this if we all want to experience that Ready Player One experience. It also says, it should say to anyone in the audience who's thinking about things like building in this type of world, there's a lot of entrepreneurial areas that you can exploit over the next 10 years. By far and away, NFTs are not even in the first inning. We're just getting a preview. So speaking of where we are, I think we're at the end of this era, NFT era 1.0. And as I think of it, a single blockchain, most of them, you can, to a certain extent, use bridges, but for the most part, they're minted and traded on a single blockchain. Of course, it was mostly tokenized art, PFPs, and collectibles. Those are all great. They're going to stick around, but that is a subset of where we're going to go. Where we're headed is cross-chain compatibility. That's obvious because as we go from hardcore crypto people to the no-coiners, people who don't really know anything about crypto, they're not going to be that comfortable with the fact that they have to pick a chain. And I think this is not going to happen immediately because cross-chain compatibility is tough, but certainly in the next 3 years. Obviously, once you have something of value, you want to do something with it. And that could be to lend it, to use it as collateral. And I've been thinking about this problem for almost 4 years. It's very difficult to use NFTs as collateral because it's very difficult to figure out what the price of that collateral is. For any of you who've bought NFTs or traded them, you know the price could change rapidly, and sometimes NFTs have been manipulated with wash trading, so you don't know what the real price is. Things like memberships, things like identity, that stuff is perfectly suited for NFTs. And the tokenization of consumer products, an area in particular that I like. I think in the next 10 years for sure, maybe sooner, a large segment of consumer products will have digital twins. You will use those digital twins in a metaverse, you will trade the digital twin, and the physical item may be retained somewhere else to be redeemed when someone needs it. Having that digital twin, and because it's tokenized, you know with certainty that it's authentic, allows you to trade this digital version of it, keeping all of the mess of shipping physical products back and forth away from the transaction. That makes, it's another great area for NFTs, particularly since globally every year there's at least 10 trillion of consumer products made and sold. And a comment on gaming. So in every era of the last 50 years, when a new technology has come about and gamers have adopted it, it is always new gamers, it's indies. It is not the incumbents, it's not the big boys who come in and use it first, because they want to protect their franchise and they got to figure the tech out. But what that means is if you are a startup, if you're an entrepreneur, there is a magnificent opportunity to get into this space because it is going to be a while, if ever, that these big AAA title video game companies are going to even want to do NFTs because they like their business model where you can't extract that digital item and profit from it individually. So I don't know when they're going to do it, but I could see maybe never. Finally, lots of people ask about fads. Are NFTs just a fad? Well, as I said, they're just computers that can be transferred back and forth and programmed in any way. So they are not a fad. But in particular, NFTs sit at this intersection of three enormous consumer behaviors: shopping, trading, and playing. Those behaviors are not going away. They've been around for thousands of years. They're going to continue to be. And NFTs are super well suited to do all three of those things. So that's my remarks on NFTs. Hopefully you got some ideas.